All right, it's Sunday, and it's a good day to have a pot roast. And the reason it's not something you do generally during the week because of the amount of time it takes. So I've got about a 3.5 pound chuck roast, and I set this out about 45 minutes ago out of the refrigerator because I want it to come up to temperature, not quite room temperature. It's going to take longer than that, but I want to dry it off, so I lay it on some paper towels before I transfer it to my prep board. And one of the things I like, I've also started heating up my Dutch oven. The way we're going to do this is unlike some others I see on YouTube, I like to get my garlic deep inside of the meat. So I'll use it's not a butter knife, I guess it's a kind of a steak knife kind of thing, but I will push it in and twist it in order to create some nice holes that I can stick pieces of garlic down into. And so you'll see I take my garlic and I smash it, and then I cut it into these kind of slivers that fit nicely inside of the holes. I push that all the way to inside. I want that to dissolve while I'm cooking this for several hours inside the oven. And then it permeates that meat with that nice garlic flavor. But garlic just gives a lot of great flavor to a pot roast. I'm going to flip this over and do some of that on the other side as well. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, next I need to wash my hands so that I can season it. I've also got my oven, I'm preheating that to 250 degrees. Now I do this a little different than others. I take a lot of time to make sure that this is really, really, really tender. So I want to take some kosher salt, and you can use a little bit more than you think, because this again is a big piece of meat, and this is going to help to keep a good crust. Also some cracked black pepper. Push that down, turn it over. More kosher salt. And more black pepper. Okay, that's ready to go into the Dutch oven. I like these elongated Dutch oven. This is I got off of Rachel Ray's website. It's called the Rachel Ray cast iron Dutch oven. And I'm just going to use some vegetable oil, just enough to cover the bottom of the pan. And while I got that going, I'm going to take some rough cut onion. This is a whole rough cut onion. And I'm going to go ahead and get that started. You can do this before or after you braise your meat, or not braise, or you sear your meat. I want to get the flavor of the onion into that meat as much as I can. So I'm going to start it out with getting those onions, the onion flavor into the oil. And yes, I'm going to take the old onions back out. As they start to get translucent and they've given off that onion flavor. Now I'm ready to put this beautiful piece of chuck roast in there. I'm going to press it down, and I'm not going to touch that for about 5 minutes. Okay, that's been about 5 minutes, maybe a little less. I'm going ahead and turn this over. We got a nice, beautiful brown, crispy crust on that side. So now we're going to do the same thing on this other side. Let it go for 4 or 5 minutes. That's been about 4 minutes, and it's looking good. Let's not forget about getting the sides. We want to get the sides of this also seared. And the ends. There's a nice piece here I can sear. This is where all the flavor comes from. Getting all these. You can see how nice and brown the sides are. Don't skip this step. You want to get all the flavor you can from this process. Okay, I've got that nice and seared. I'm going to go ahead and add back in my pre-cooked onions. I want some sitting on the top, some around the edges. And I'm going to use some beef broth. This is going to be our braising liquid. I'm going to put in enough to come up about 3/4 up the side. I don't want it to be under, but 3/4 up the side. I may need to add some later, but for now, that's ready to go in the oven. So we can go ahead and put the cover on it. I'm going to put that in the oven. I like to get this started about 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the morning to have ready for dinner, because I'm going to leave that in the oven for several hours. So you can see I have the oven at 250 bake. Put my crock pot in there, or not my crock pot, my Dutch oven, cast iron, in the oven, and it's going to now sit in there until, it's about noon now. I'll probably leave that in there till 4 or 5 o'clock, and then we'll add the carrots and potatoes to it. Okay, it's been 5.5 hours in the oven at 250. So let's take a look how it's doing. That's beautiful. Beautiful. Looks like I'm going to really not have to add anything to it other than my potatoes and carrots. Now, it is definitely tender. I do think I'm going to add a little bit more broth. Let me get some broth. I'm going to add a little more broth. It's going to go back in the oven. The meat's done. It's pretty much ready, but I'm going to finish off this box of broth, and I'm going to put in my carrots, which I've already cleaned and chopped up into about 2-inch pieces. Any of the thicker ones, I've cut them in half. I want this to be able to cook in about an hour and a half, and then we'll be ready to eat dinner, or we'll be ready to turn that broth into a gravy, which I'll show you how I do that coming up. And I got these really nice looking bite-sized Dutch potatoes. I want to put those in there. Put this back in the oven, but I'm going to also increase the temperature from 250 up to 300. So I'll go bake, 300, start. So we're going back in at 300. Okay, it's time to go to our next step. It's been in there for an hour and a half, an hour and 40 minutes. Check those potatoes. They're tender. So I want to separate the vegetables from the meat. So I'll just put those in another bowl. Okay, now I'm going to carefully take out the meat, which is going to fall apart. Impossible to take it all as one piece. It just falls apart. All right, now comes the part where I use this device. It's a strainer on the top. This little stopper you put inside of the spout, and when I pour this juice in, this is the fat separator. I'll try to do this so you can see it. Let me just pour this juice into the fat separator. And then we'll just have to let that sit for just a little while. In the meantime, I can cover up the vegetables so they stay nice and warm. But what you'll see happen is the fat will start to separate from the juice. This is just to make it maybe a little bit healthier. Some people just want to leave that fat in, that's fine. For me, I want to cut as much of it out as I can. Now that the fat has separated, I'm going to unplug this. You notice how the spout goes towards the bottom. And I can pour in the juice. I've got this nice and hot, as you can see. I watch the side, and I'll pour until I get to the fat, and I'll leave that part out. So the fat stays inside of the fat separator. While that's heating up, I'm going to make a slurry, which we just use cornstarch, and we use 1 part cornstarch to 1 part water. It's a good idea to use cold water. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we stir that up. You want to pour your slurry into a nice simmering hot juice from your pot roast. So that's starting to simmer. Turn the temperature up just a little bit. Give me a whisk. Then right before you pour it in there, you want to stir it one more time and then drizzle it in. And then immediately start to stir it. And as that heats up, you'll notice that that will turn to a nice thick gravy. Turn it down a little bit. It's getting nice and thick. Now I'm ready to pour it into my gravy bowl. You know how hard it is to find these things anymore? I have not. This is an antique one that we have, so I'm always worried about using it. But to just find a gravy bowl, just don't see them. So it's going to be hard to show you me pouring this, but I'm just going to pour that in to my gravy bowl. A little bit more than what it can hold, so I'm going to take that off of the burner. And next we'll show you how it looks when I plate it. So first, let's take a look at how tender this meat is. It just falls apart. And that looked good. Just falls apart. So we'll take some of this meat and put on our plate. And some vegetables, potatoes and carrots. Then if we pour our gravy over the top of the meat and the potatoes and carrots, just a little salt and pepper. And there you have our weekend pot roast. Very easy, very delicious. Thank you for watching our video. This is another one of our family favorites. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next video.